Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and I'm going to be doing a Windwitch deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is an extremely consistent deck that can summon out some of the most powerful synchro monsters in the entire game. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting you to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Windwitch Ice Bell, which is one of the best cards in the entire deck. This card has a Cyber Dragon effect that if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can special summon a Windwitch monster from your deck. But it can't be tributed and you can't special summon monsters from the extract the turn you activate this effect except level 5 or higher wind monsters, which is not that big of a deal because that's all we're summoning anyways. But that's a great effect to help you start synchro climbing and get you a really cool card out to your side of the field so you can summon out some synchro monsters. This card also does a little bit of burn damage because if this card is normal or special summon, you can inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent, which can help you close out games. We then play 3 copies of Windwitch Glass Bell, which is a card you're usually summoning off of Ice Bell. And this card has an awesome effect that if this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Windwitch monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is a great effect just to instantly add a copy of our Snowbell, which we play 3 copies of in this build. Snowbell is an awesome 3 of in this build because this card has a great effect to combo with your other 2 Windwitches that if you control 2 or more wind monsters and no non-wind monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, which just gets you the monsters that you need to go in for some really cool synchro plays. But this card also has a really good effect when you synchro summon with it because a wind synchro monster that was summoned using this card as a synchro material cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, which is a great effect to give you a little bit of protection. We then play 3 copies of Freeze Bell. Freeze Bell is a definite 3 of in the deck and just a really good card overall in this build because she can actually special summon herself to your side of the field. If all monsters you control are Windwitch monsters, minimum 1, then you can special summon this card from your hand and you can only summon this card once per turn that way, and once per turn during your main phase, you can increase this card's level by 1, and a wind synchro monster that was summoned using this card as a synchro material cannot be destroyed by battle, which gives you even more protection for your cards, which is a great effect. We then play 2 copies of Blizzard Bell. Blizzard Bell is a really good 2 of in the deck, but I have bumped this card down to 2 from the previous list. It's still a really good card, but I feel like 2 is totally fine. But it has a really good effect that if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are Windwitch monsters, you can normal summon this card without tributing, which gets you a level 5 tuner on the field to help you start synchro climbing into some really powerful cards. So this card is a definite 2 of in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Win the Wind Channeler. This card is a really awesome 3 of in the deck. She's a really good card to be able to search out your copy of Ice Bell, so we play her as a 3 of in the deck. We then play 2 copies of Gandarla. This card is a definite 2 of the deck because we can actually use this card with Small World to be able to get to our copy of Ice Bell. And you always want to start with a copy of Ice Bell, and with your copies of the Wind Channeler and the copies of Small World in the deck, you basically have like 9 copies in the deck of your Ice Bell, which helps you get to your starter all the time. But if you do draw into this card, it helps you out your opponent's monsters, which is a great effect to be able to do. And combo cards like Crystal Wing, your Crystal Wing can get absolutely massive with this card on the field on your opponent's side, which is great. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom just to make sure that the opponent's not going to touch the deck. This card is just a great hand trap overall to be able to stop the opponent. We then play 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. This card is really good in this particular build. I really love this card in this deck because it stops the opponent from searching, which is great, and it's just an overall fantastic hand trap. We then play 3 copies of Psyframe Gear Gamma. This card is a definite 3 of in the deck because usually when we activate our copies of our like Small World and the copies of the Wind Channeler, we're not going to have a monster on the field. So this card can actually help us out a lot to give us a monster on the field, along with a copy of Driver to give us basically a level 8 synchro play, which is great while also giving us protection to ensure that we're going to get a search, which is just an awesome effect. So these cards are really helpful in this particular build to not only protect us, but also give us a synchro play. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is a definite one-of in this deck, because this card just helps out a lot to be able to just protect us from hand traps. We then play 3 copies of Windwitch Chimes. Windwitch Chimes is a really cool 3-of in this particular build, and I really love this card in this particular deck because it has the ability to target a Windwitch monster you control, and then special summon one Windwitch monster with a different name from your deck in defense position, and you can only activate one of this card per turn, and you can't special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect except wind monsters, which is a totally fair effect for this deck because that's pretty much all we're summoning anyways, except for the copies of our Psyframe cards. We then play 3 copies of Small World. Small World is insanely powerful in this deck because it helps us get to our copy of Ice Spell extremely quickly, and this card we always want to see in our opening hand. But this card is super easy to play in the deck because you can basically reveal one of your cards in your hand that's a wind monster, and then reveal your copy of your Mystery Dust Kaiju or Gandarla, and then you get your copy of Ice Spell, which is a super easy effect to do. It's very similar to my Black Wings, where you actually reveal a copy of a Blackwing in your hand that's not a level 6, then you grab the copy of your Raiden, your multi-dimensional kaiju, and then you grab your copy of Simoon. Just like that deck, you can do it the same way in this particular build with a kaiju, which is really cool. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Icy Breeze. Icy Breeze is a really good 1-of in the deck, but you only really need a single copy of this card. You can activate one of these following effects to target a Windwitch monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position, which is a pretty good effect just to bring back one of your monsters to your side of the field. And when your opponent activates a card or effect in response to your Windwitch monster's effect activation, you negate that opponent's effect, which is a great effect just to give you a little bit of protection. We then also play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Impermanence is just a fantastic hand trap to go with the other hand traps we're already playing in this deck to be able to stop your opponent's monster effects. This card can also be set to your side of the field to lock down entire columns for spells and traps, which is great about this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Diamond Bell. Diamond Bell is an awesome boss monster in this particular build, and just a really cool card overall, because it has a really great effect that if this card is synchro summoned, then you can target a Windwitch monster in your graveyard and inflict damage to your opponent equal to half that monster's attack. And you can only use the effect of this card once per turn, and once per turn, if your opponent takes battle or effect damage, then you can target a card on the field and destroy it. And if you control this card that was synchro summoned using a Windwitch monster as material, you can use the effect up to twice per turn, getting you a double pop, which is a great effect, especially since a lot of our cards actually do a little bit of burn damage. We then play a single copy of Stellar Wind Wolf. This card is just a good wind level 9 monster that we can synchro summon into extremely easily in this particular build. I really like this card because it's almost like a Nibiru for the deck, but I really like this card as a 1-of in the build. We then play a single copy of Shinshin. Shinshin is a really good 1-of in this particular build as well, because any card sent from the field to the graveyard is banished instead, which is a pretty good effect, especially in today's format. We then play 2 copies of one of the most powerful synchro monsters ever created, and that's going to be 2 copies of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. This card basically just eats effect monsters for breakfast, and it's super good in this particular build because it has the ability that once per turn, when another monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate the activation if you do destroy that monster. And if you do that, this card gains attack equal to destroyed monster's original attack until the end of this turn. And if this card battles an opponent's monster that's level 5 or higher, then during damage calculation, this card gains the attack equal to the current attack of that opponent's monster it's battling until the end of the damage calculation. And if we give our opponent a kaiju, we can actually swing through the kaiju and do 3,000 points of damage to the opponent because this card will gain the attack points, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Cyber/Harpy Lady. This card is super easy to make in this particular deck, and just a really cool wind synchro monster that we can make, because when a spell or trap card or effect is activated, then quick effect, you can target one monster that your opponent controls, or a harpy monster that you control, and return it back to the hand, so it gives you a balance whenever a spell or trap is activated. We then play a single copy of Omega, because we can get cards out of our opponent's hand with this card, but it is a light monster, so you have to watch out for that in this particular build, because sometimes you will get locked into wind monsters, but I believe believe this is the only non-wind monster we're playing in the entire deck. We then play a single copy of Stardust Dragon because we can make it, and it's still a really cool card to be able to make in this particular deck. Playing a single copy of Clearwing Fast Dragon. This card is just great for monster negates and is an awesome card in this particular build because it is a level 7 wind synchro monster. We then play 3 copies of Windwitch Winterbell. Winterbell is a card that we're always using to synchro climb in this particular deck with our copy of Glass Bell and Ice Bell to make this card, because this card helps us climb into other synchro plays, but it has a really good effect that you can target a Windwitch monster in your graveyard and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the targeted monster's level times 200, which is pretty good to do at least 800 points of burn damage against the opponent when this card is summoned. So this card is a really good 3 of in the deck. We then play a single copy of the Wind Pegasus. Wind Pegasus is good to synchro climb with as well, because if this card's in the graveyard, you can banish this card and then target one card that your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck by just banishing this card. That's a great effect to be able to use, and this card is super easy to use to synchro climb. We then play a single copy of Maple Maiden. Maple Maiden is a tech card that I'm playing in this particular deck that I feel like is a really neat card to be able to synchro summon into as a level 7, and it's really easy to make because it is generic. And if this card is special summon, you can declare any attribute, and this card gains the following effect: that all face-up monsters become that attribute, and you can target one monster in your opponent's main monster zone, and your opponent must send one card from among its adjacent monster zones or spell and trap card zones to the graveyard, which is a pretty good effect to be able to force your opponent to send a card to the graveyard. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Windwitch before, you definitely should give the deck a try. It's an extremely consistent synchro deck that's just super fun to be able to play a bunch of hand traps in and make 1 or 2 synchro plays at least a turn. Sometimes you can even make 3 synchro plays a turn, which is really cool. So anyways, guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.